So I thought I was doing pretty good. When we got over to the work yard from the storage yard, I thought, okay, so let's try and narrow this down to just the main things that we have to do to get the boat to the water. And so I kind of like bulk grouped three things. That's all we had to do. First thing was to caulk the hull, which is a pretty involved step, but that's pretty much done except for the very last bit, which is to paint the hull. And then 2 was to get basically the shaft log plugged up, because we can install the engine in the water if we want to, but we had to get the prop shaft, stuffing box, things like that. So that was number 2. And then the third and final thing before we had to launch the boat is the rudder. So that's a little bit involved to getting the pintles and gudgeons made, and yeah, and then get the rudder hung onto the back. So basically everything that had to be done under the water, that was it. And then interior, rig, deck hardware, all that we were going to do in the water. But Garrett had a different idea.
Starting to struggle with motivation and like want to keep working on the boat, because of the realization that this cabin house is just totally wrong. Like I really screwed that one up. But I had it in my head, like that kind of initial thought of, you know, we've come so far, we're so close, like you can't cut your cabin house apart again. And you know, that's 10 steps back. You know, you should be going forward. And so I kind of just like shoved that mentality in my head for a long time, but really that was just making me less and less motivated to actually keep working on the boat. So I started to think like, well, what's the point? You know, what's the point if I'm just going to compromise, and there's this huge thing about the boat that I don't like and that I'm not going to like, and it's not, you know, it's gonna eat away at me over time, and the change would have to be made. It would be either make the change or get rid of the boat. And so that's when I kind of had the realization of like, what the hell is stopping you? You know, I built this whole boat. Every single piece of wood on this boat was cut and shaped and fit with my hands and with Ruth helping me. And so why is the thought of simply, you know, cutting and rebuilding a cabin house a big deal? It's really not.
It started with measurements for the additional deck beams, since the new cabin will be smaller, giving us a larger foredeck and wider side deck. Here we go again. What are you doing?
Wood, minding my own business.
Yeah, what are you doing? I caught you red-handed.
Well, we have to buy this one.
We don't have a use for that one.
Of course we do.
Garrett, put it down.
We have a use for it. It's 16 feet and it's clear.
Put it down, Garrett. No, not down on the cart. Bad. Don't walk away from me. Don't run with your wood. If you ever go wood hunting with Garrett, bring your patience. He often likes the ones in the back and at the bottom. This is how we find a lot of our wood. If not on Craigslist, It's sorting through construction grade lumber. You can't just pick any old piece. One, that'd be too easy. And two, it has to be good grain, few knots, and a little to no warping. Sometimes you strike out. But sometimes you find gold. That's nice. Because the beams will be sawn, we can work around any knots, so this trip was a little less picky. 4 more beams in total are going in since Garrett's cutting roughly 4 feet off the front of the cabin house. 2 will be double sawn because they'll straddle and support the main mast. So we got 6 boards plus that clear 16-footer Garrett just couldn't put back. This one up without
maybe.
side of it.
Yeah. Over.
So this is really like the first step towards changing the cabin.
Yeah.
Again.
No, it's been a while since we bought lumber, so. Kind of exciting.
Ready for another big change?
Always. Funny thing is that I decided to cut away and modify the cabin house again. And everybody's reaction at first, even around here, is like, "You're crazy! It's so much work," and like making this big thing about it. But I don't know. In reality, and I'm sure we'll hear it in the comments too. In reality, it's really not that much work. It's not that hard. It just, all you have to do is do it. Once you start doing it, cutting stuff, fitting new frames, putting new plywood, it's a simple task. And which is why, like, yeah, this is the 3rd rendition, and deciding to do this means that it's longer until we can launch, but we're probably, a couple days away from having it all glassed in. So it's really not a big setback, maybe a couple weeks. But the difference that it makes in the boat, because when we built the old cabin, we still had the cover over the boat, and
The shed.
yeah, the shed over the boat, and the rafters in the shed were about, chest high. So we're walking around the boat like this, trying to make measurements and build a cabin house. And I kind of did what I thought was, right at the time, just not right. The side decks were too narrow. There wasn't enough angle in the cabin house. So, even though you had 16 inches of side deck, because there wasn't enough angle in the house, it would be hitting you in the thigh. So it would take that already kind of narrow deck, and it would push you out even further with your thigh, and it was precarious trying to walk along the deck. Yeah, the Seaway having these nice wide side decks, nice handrails, you've got plenty of room to move around. We're gonna have Hank on sails probably. So another thing, if you want to lug a sail bag, there's plenty of room. You don't feel like you're constantly trying to get pushed off the side of the boat. You've got a good angle in the house now. Also, with the cabin extending so far forward here, and just when you think about when you get the bowsprit in, when you have the windlass, and you have all the gear that you have up here, there would be no foredeck. So there would be no safe place to come up and manage your head sails. Even messing around with your anchor and stuff, you'd be fumbling around everything the whole time. So wasn't really safe, it wasn't really functional. And this whole area where the cabin house extended up, that's just where the bunk is down below. You really don't need, it was basically this huge cabin house which would have been over our bunk, which is not really necessary, And there's still plenty of headroom under there for your bunk with the flush deck here. And another huge benefit moving the cabin, or cutting this much off of the cabin house, is now our main mast is going to come through right here at deck level, which I think for me that's a huge advantage in safety and functionality, because it's a traditionally rigged boat, which means it's not as easy as, you know, a regular Marconi rig or modern rig. If you want to come, the weather's bad, you want to tuck a reef in or something, you're dealing with two halyards, you're dealing with a big gaff, and to be able to really plant yourself, you know, have this cabin wall to plant yourself against, or even, you know, sit down, straddle the mast, or whatever you need to do, being down at deck level, and we'll probably have a big kind of pin rail around here too, being down at deck level, being able to work the belaying pins and work the halyards and everything, it's just, it's much safer, it's much easier, and so yeah, I think the advantages of doing these modifications were, I mean, the advantages so much outweigh the disadvantages, which were losing a little bit of space inside and the time and the money that it took to make the changes. Yep, you guys don't know any of this yet because we decided to pretty much finish it before we put it out there, because we knew we were going to get so much, you know, in the comments, why would you do that, so much extra work, just launch the boat, go sailing. It's like, you know, what's the point of building a boat and doing all of this if we're just gonna compromise? Like, it's not what I want, but it's already there, I don't like it, but whatever. Like, no. You know, you build a boat to have a boat that you are proud of, and now I feel like we have a safe, functional, working deck for actually sailing our boat. Before, the cabin, the way the cabin was, that was a live aboard cabin. That was a cabin that you would have on a boat that you put in a slip and don't go anywhere.
Instead of sleep, Garrett spent days imagining and sketching out the million possibilities of how to accomplish the cabin remodel. Discovering the best way to keep most of our previous labor intact was to put in the 4 new deck beams while the old cabin's still in place. He could remove the old mediocre beams and the bulkheads, then get the proper beams installed before cutting off the forward quarter of the cabin top and hacking away the cabin walls. With the interior now prepped, it was time to use our new lumber stock and saw out our new deck beams for the foredeck.
I'm a bit nervous, but also kind of a bit excited. I haven't seen what Garrett's been up to the last, well, really like 2 weeks almost, and he finally confirmed and made the decision that he wants to change the cabin house. So, again, but I really have no choice but to be supportive because I know it's something that he needs to do, and he has to continue to make the boat of his dreams, and I'm happy to be a part of it, to sail on it, and you know, whatever is going to help make that happen. But yeah, he's got all of the forward beams in that he needs to, and yeah, Swab's seen it. He approves. He says it's okay. But yeah, he's got all of the forward beams that he has to put in before we can cut off the cabin. Oh, like so different with the bulkhead.
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of neat. You can see the shear so much as it goes up. Wow. Those are some beefy beams there, Garrett.
They're swab sized.
So this is about the room that we got. Feel good?
Yeah, feels really good. I just can't wait to saw this shit off and put a new deck down.
Do you think today's the day? Where's the line? So a few more things had to happen, like figuring out how far in we wanted to move the side decks,
Shoulder room under it for sure.
and getting the temporary bracing set up to support the cabin top, which we wanted to keep until the new walls were in.
First holes. This means it's permanent. I drilled these holes all the way up and all the way across the cabin top, and so I'll basically connect the dots . The big thing is that we wanted a salty boat, you know. Aesthetics mean a big thing to me. Well, probably me. I'm kind of persnickety about that. Ruth's a little bit more easygoing than I am, but you know, I want a salty gaff rig catch. You know, I want something that if you saw this boat floating in an anchorage, she wouldn't look out of place if it was in the 1800s. So yeah, I don't want to continue to make compromises. I want to put that fantasy back.
Up next, oh dear. Whoa. We discussed the next steps to completing the cabin remodel, make patterns, and
Garrett's really excited because it is the hour to cut off the side decks.